Right, by the middle of the 13th century, motets were used for almost every occasion. For church services, for banquets, for weddings, ceremonies, even love songs. The motet began in Paris, which I believe is why the French text was added to the Latin clausula, but it quickly spread throughout Europe and became the preferred form of polyphony, even in Italy. Actually, it was quite famous in Italy. They really liked it. Most composers favored the three-voice motet, except for in England, where the four-voice motet was more popular. I'm not quite sure why. They just decided they liked four voices. Motet is named by the incipit, or the first word or words of each line, beginning with the highest voice. For example, factum et salutaire is the first three words of the duplum, and dominus is the first word of the tenor, for the example that we listened to earlier. Most motets are anonymous, and often you'll find the same song in several different manuscripts with only slight variations, because once a song was written, it was just in the public domain. Anybody could use it, take it as their own, rework it into something different without ever giving credit to the original composer. That was just the society and the culture that they lived in. And since so much of the music was used by either traveling musicians or in church services, it was really difficult, if not impossible, to monitor where everything was going. And so you never really knew where a song was coming from, for the most part. There are some exceptions, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, for the most part, everything was anonymous. Some of the largest collections of motets include the St. Victor manuscript, the Montpellier manuscript, the manuscript from Notre Dame at Wolfenbüttel, the Bamberg Codex, and the Las Huelgas Codex. Pardon my pronunciation. The St. Victor manuscript and Wolfenbüttel are contemporaneous. They were written at the very beginning of the 13th century, so they have lots of examples of very early motets. The Montpellier manuscript was written in the middle of the 13th century, probably somewhere between 1240 and 1250, and it contains 345 pieces, mostly comprised of motets. Also anonymous, the Bamberg Codex was written later and contains 108 three-voice motets. The Las Huelgas Codex was actually written in the 14th century in Spain, but contains some excellent examples of 13th century motets. And since it was written later, the manuscript is in slightly better condition, and so it's easier to read. And also it has slightly different notation since it was written later. If you guys could go to your listening example and choose number 2, Jolientement, and listen from about 50 seconds in until the end. This recording added the upper voices one at a time, and so for the first 15-20 seconds or so you'll be hearing the tenor line on its own, then the motetus will be added in, and then finally the more ornamental triplum will be added on top of that. So it gives you a chance to hear each of the lines individually. So if you could go ahead and take a look at that and then come back, that would be great.